Well, it's draft season here on MASN All-Access, which means it's time for one of my favorite conversations every year, and that's with Joe Doyle, the founder of Overslot. Ball knower, draft knower. Joe, thanks so much for taking the time once again.
Always, Brendan. I love the show. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump right into it. So the Orioles have 3 picks in the top 31 at 19, 30, and 31. But this is also the 3rd year that they've drafted a little later in the first round. I know the Orioles are happy about that, not drafted in the top 5, but it does change your draft strategy. So what have you seen over the past 2 seasons from the Orioles with this kind of new era of drafting at the later half of the first round?
Yeah, I think in recent years, Baltimore's just been willing to take a little bit more chances. I mean, you don't have access to the premium elite guys, but they're still chasing tools. And, you and I were talking before this show got going. It's still way too early to figure out whether or not that new philosophy is going to pan out. But, Vance Honeycutt came with hit tool concerns, but he was a surefire center fielder with bat speed. Enrique Bradfield, a surefire center fielder with good bats to ball skills and the potential to steal 70 bases a year. That's obviously a pretty big departure from what they've done in the past. I don't know if they're going to continue to take those specific types of shots in 2025, just because, what you've seen over the last couple of years is a difficult assimilation to professional baseball for those guys, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, what do you think these past few draft classes have told you about what the Orioles could do this year?
Well, the one thing the Orioles have never strayed away from is they don't select players that chase outside of the zone. They just don't. I mean, it doesn't. Vance Honeycutt came with hit tool concerns, but he also came with like a 17% chase rate. Mac Horvath, the exact same way. Bradfield, the same way. Like those pillars to build upon to become a good hitter at the next level, that selectivity, that mature approach, they've never strayed away from that. There's been different archetypes of the players that they've selected, but I think that mature approach is something that they hone in on every single draft. So whoever they end up taking at 19, 30, 31, I would reckon if history is any sort of precedent in the Mike Elias era, it's going to be a player with a polished approach.
Yeah, so when you're doing a mock draft and you see the Orioles up next on your board, do you just kind of rule out anybody without a great chase rate? Is that kind of the one tool that you look at and say, okay, this is either an Orioles kind of guy or it isn't? What are some of those tools?
Yeah, I think the best thing that we can do is take history and reverse engineer a model and try to figure out exactly what Baltimore likes to target. I think it's no secret that Baltimore is a model-driven team. They do like to use their analytics and lean on the data especially hard. And so not using that information, I think, would be a detriment to the process. So what you can do, like I said, is you try and reverse engineer. You try and figure out exactly what this organization likes to target. And thus far, it has been guys with very, very sound approaches at the plate. It could be a power hitter. It could be a center fielder. It could be this. It could be that. But at the end of the day, they really want that foundation, that bedrock of pitch selectivity.
Yeah, so let's dive into this year's draft class because, as mentioned, the Orioles have 3 picks in a dozen selections. So there could be some guys flying off the board for them. Just tell me about the draft class around that range.
Yeah, I would say right about where the Orioles are going to select is where you're going to see this run on high school shortstops start to come off the board. If we look at who's going to be available, you look at the Steele Halls, you look at the Daniel Pierces, you look at the Xavier Nyans, the Gavin Fiends, the Josh Hammonds. Like those are the types of players that I think are going to be there. And this is a very strong class for high school shortstops. I mean, I've got 9 high school shortstops. If you want to include Ethan Holiday and you want to include Gavin Fiend, who I think will ultimately be third baseman, if you want to include them in the high school shortstop bucket, I have 9 high school shortstops in my top 20 overall prospects right now. And, one thing the Orioles have done over the course of the last couple of years, over the last handful of years, is they have leaned into the strength of a draft. They have gone after the demographic that is going to provide the most fruit in that draft. So it wouldn't surprise me if a run on high school shortstops started at the 14, 15, 16 range. If the Orioles made an emphasis to go in and get one of those high school shortstops at 19. But as a whole, this draft, it's a little bit lighter on college hitters, and I think you're going to see college hitters go later in this class. You're going to see college hitters go in the 15 to 30, 15 to 40 range. So Baltimore is positioned uniquely to capture potentially some of the more intriguing college hitters in this class. We know that Baltimore doesn't like to go after college pitching. I don't know if they're going to have a lot of access to college pitching with where they're selecting. So I would expect that high school shortstop class and, some of those advantageous college position players that are going to fall down the board a little bit to be targets for Baltimore.